So when I came to Medjugorje the first time, my health was pretty desperate. I was 3 tumors in my right lung, scheduled to have my right lung removed. There were actually, I would say, 2 first times I've heard of Medjugorje, and I only say that for a reason. The very first time I heard of Medjugorje, my wife had been given a book on the messages of Medjugorje by my daughter, way early, maybe 1990. Then I got sick in 1999, and my brother-in-law, Kevin Gill, realized how desperate we were, and I was about to undergo a major surgery, and he said, "Did I ever hear of Medjugorje?" He heard it from another friend of ours in a hockey locker room. So, of all places, and the 2 of them played golf a couple of days after my bad diagnosis, and Rob had asked, Rob Griffin, my other friend, and he happened to be the 2 guys that took me to Medjugorje, said to Kevin, "You've ever heard of Medjugorje?" Kevin hadn't, so they spent 18 holes discussing Medjugorje. He called me up, he said, "You ever hear of Medjugorje?" And I said, "Kinda, but I don't know what it is." And he asked me, do I want to go? And the minute he said that, something came over me, and I immediately said yes. I had no idea where I was going or what the place was all about, but we would soon find out. The reason I made the decision to go to Medjugorje was in 1999, I was diagnosed with renal cell carcinoma. I knew I was sick because I was always very athletic, and I was an avid golfer at the time, and I couldn't play 4 holes of golf without having to stop. There was a burning in my body. And at my wife's request, my wife Judy, I went and got a physical which showed I was anemic, led to other tests which finally discovered that I had kidney cancer. I had several surgeries. The kidney cancer was removed. Many wonderful things happened during that time through healing masses. I believe I was touched by the finger of God, because they were going to take out my pancreas, and in the operating table, a membrane had grown between the pancreas and the tumor protecting the pancreas, so that was never touched. So they did take out the kidney and the adrenal gland, and pathology report came back, and everything was great. The doctor was ecstatic. I was going to live a normal life. But being a cancer patient, you keep going back for tests, especially when it was such a severe surgery. And when I went back for the tests, 3 months later, it was fine. 8 months later, they discovered 3 tumors in my right lung. So now I had to go see a thoracic surgeon. And the thoracic surgeon, and I brought my daughter and son-in-law, who are both in medical school, my daughter Jen, and my wife, because I didn't want to hear what he had to say. And he said he's going to have to cut out my lung. It's going to, just all kinds of bad stuff. He told me I had less than 5% chance to survive, to go home and put my house in order. Surgery was scheduled for September 14th of the year 2000. Basically, he told me I was going to die. So Kevin had heard this information, and Kevin and I are very close, and he was devastated. But he found out about this place called Medjugorje from Rob, and he asked me about it. And when he asked me, I was so desperate, and I had anxiety and depression. I could barely put one foot in front of the other because the doctor told me I was going to die. I had 13 children. We had, I think, 5 under the age of 10 at the time. So that my wife was the true prayer warrior in the whole thing. She kept praying and telling me it was going to be okay, and brought me to all these healing services. And then Kevin said, "You want to go to Medjugorje?" And something struck in my heart. We got on the plane, and we kept a journal, each of us. And I wrote in my journal, "I'm going to Medjugorje to be healed and to see the Blessed Mother. And although I may not actually see her, I know I'll be touched by her in some way." And faith defined in the gospel, which I would later find out, is the confident assurance of things hoped for and the evidence of things yet unseen. And I had written in that book, the confident assurance of things hoped for. When we arrived in Medjugorje, I was supposed to be prayed over by Visca. Rob Griffin had made that arrangement through Sister Margaret Sims of the Marian community in Boston. And unfortunately, we found out she had to go to Rome to visit a sick friend. That was the first night we were here. And the first thing we did was go to confession, because we hadn't been to confession in 20, 30 years. And we said, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. So into confession, into Mass, crazy Mass. Everybody's jammed in. They pray in the Rosary, and they sing in the Ave between the decades. And it was just so moving. It lifted my soul. We met Jelka, our guide, Visca's cousin. She told us Visca had gone away. And next morning went to Mass, and Jelka said, "What would you like to do?" We said, well, we want to get our wives something nice. We were there September 4th till September 10th, and they were cutting out my right lung September 14th, so it was truly a trip of desperation. We went down to a little Leo's jewelry store, and sure enough, Kevin comes over and says, you know who that's standing right next to you? It was Visca. She had missed her plane, was stopping in the jewelry store to buy a rosary ring, and she's now standing right next to me. So Jelka explained who I was. She prayed over me, and when she put her hand on my head to pray, Robbie and Kevin put their hands on my back, and the intensity of her prayer caused heat to go through my body that caused them to sweat. That was the beginning of our trip to Medjugorje. So right from that point on, all kinds of crazy things happened to us that were wonderful. And we were 3 guys without any women, come to Medjugorje on our own, and people thought we were like the 3 Musketeers or the whatever. They couldn't make anything of us because we were so excited to be here. I had asked my wife, we came off the mountain, and I said, something is happening here in Medjugorje. Please call the doctor and get another CT scan scheduled before they cut out my right lung. She called the doctor. The doctor's secretary called me back and left a message on my voicemail, which I used to carry around with me. He said, Mr. Boyle, we know you're in Medjugorje. We know why you're there. That's a beautiful thing. But the fact is, you have cancer and it's not going to disappear. We're going to go ahead with the surgery. My wife did what any good wife would do. She got another doctor. This doctor, I would later find out, had sent his parents to Medjugorje, had a picture of Medjugorje hanging in his office wall. God was working in my life. He scheduled another CT scan, which I had 2 days prior to my surgery, and the CT scan showed the cancer was gone. So on September 14th, the Feast of the Triumph of the Cross, and instead of having my right lung cut out, I was playing golf with Robbie and Kevin. Jesus Christ, through the intercession of his mother Mary, had healed me in Medjugorje. Medjugorje has changed our life from that experience because many things happened. We learned about prayer groups. We actually met with Father Jozo Zovko. He prayed over me. He had private conversation with us. We were at the top of that mountain, and you could just feel the peace of Medjugorje. I actually asked Jesus to take me home then because I said I will never feel this peace again, and I haven't since then. And I've been back to Medjugorje. This is my 19th trip. But it changed not only my life, the life of my family, the life of Kevin and Rob's family. It's been exponential throughout the entire south of Boston. It's changed the lives of thousands of people. And the way it's changed the lives is the Mass has a total new meaning to us. We all went to Mass because maybe our wives were different, but the guys, I know we went to Mass because it was out of obligation. We really didn't care to be there as much as we probably should have. And now it's totally different. Now we listen to the readings. Now we receive the Eucharist knowing exactly what Jesus is really in our hearts. And we started a prayer group. In 2001, we started a prayer group on Thursday evenings to pray the Rosary and the Chaplet. We also have priests from all over the world that come, have healing masses. We have thousands of people that are part of the prayer group. But every single Thursday night, and it's been every Thursday night since 2001, unless it's a holy day, we'll have 15 to 50 people. And then when we have the healing masses, the church is completely packed. And we've had one of the priests that we met in Medjugorje, in the confessional, that is probably the single most significant thing that happened to me in Medjugorje, was the confession with Father Simon Cadwallader of Liverpool, England. He changed my life. It was the first sincere, real confession I'd ever had. And when I came out of that confessional with him, I realized that I had to come to Medjugorje for a spiritual healing first before I could get my physical healing. And I told myself that I will go back into the Boston area and I will tell everyone this story. Confession is not an option in our faith. It's a sacrament given to us by Jesus, which gives us a grace which enables us to walk in the light of Christ. Without it, we can't do that. So that's how it really changed our lives. We're all confession, Mass, Rosary, pray with the family, all the stones of Medjugorje. If we follow those, we got nothing to fear.